In today's video, I am going to be breaking down why zone offenses work, how they work, and why you want to use them against zone defenses. Also, why zone defenses can be deadly for younger age groups, but at the same time shouldn't be and don't have to be. So let's get down and let's check this out. So one of the most common zone offenses that you will see is a high-low offense where you are going to have a high post player and a low post player. The reason why this works so well is when you pass the ball, so they will usually cover that high post. And let's just say randomly that at this point they are forcing towards the right side. Most zones will want to force you towards the sideline or baseline. They do not want anything up middle. The reason is because it's deadly. So if player 1 passes over to player 3, the first thing that has to happen is player 3 red. He needs to, at least in a 2-3 zone, will need to shade player 3 until player 1 gets there. Meanwhile, player 5 covers the low post and player 2 is going to be covering this area. Once player 1 gets here, player 3 is going to be able to drop, and that allows player 5 to recover. Most likely player 3 will be fronting player 5 blue. Now, when this happens, if you can get that ball into that high post, player 4 has two options. Now, the reason why the high post is so deadly is because that draws player 5 up away from the basket. If player 5 blue is able to post up player 3, this is a high to low post pass, and he's able to score. If they're able to front player 5 in a 2-3 zone, player 4 can kick the ball out to player 2, and this now shifts the defense because the ball passed that imaginary half line right there. At this time, player 4 needs to stunt until player 2 gets there. Player 4 drops. Player 5 is in the low post because he's going to then switch. But while player 4 is stunting, player 2 is going to try and get that ball into the low post. This is going to drop player 5, and player 4 can then cut to the basket, and this can be a floater. So this is one of the most common zone offenses, and how it works is no matter what defense you're going up against, whether it's a 1-3-1 or a 2-3 or a 3-2, it doesn't matter, because the whole main goal is to get that ball into the high post so you can draw the baseline defenders up, and then being able to move that ball into the low post, which then shifts defenses, get the ball out to the opposite wing. That shifts defenses as well. And by shifting the defense, getting the ball into the high post, trying to get it into the low post, or vice versa, is going to allow you to beat zones. This also works against a 1-3-1 quite well. Because in a 1-3-1, when you pass the ball to player 3 as an example, player 4 should be able to be, or should be trying to post up player 5. Now, while player 3 is down in the low post, if player 4 was to drive, that draws this player, and then you can kick the ball to player 5. If they collapse on you, as what should happen, player 4 should collapse if this happens, then it's a kick out for a 3-point shot. Now, this is where younger teams have troubles. A lot of younger teams cannot shoot threes, or cannot shoot threes at a high percentage, which is why teams will run a zone. Even though coaches, in my opinion, should not be teaching zone first, they should be teaching man-to-man defense first, and then teach zone, because man-to-man teaches zone principles. Then it's going to be easier for that team to learn zone defense properly. But if a team is running a zone, they're hoping that you shoot threes and shoot threes at a low percentage. However, if you can run a high to low post offense, then you should be quite successful. Now, I am not a huge fan of the 3-out or 2-out or whatever high-low zone offense. I am not a fan of it. I, as a trainer and as a coach, develop slashers and shooters. So while shooters can thrive off of this, slashers can't, because a slasher needs to get to the rim to be able to allow their game to work for them. I very, very rarely teach only low post skills to players or high post skills to players. Very rarely. And if I do it, it's to help them out on the perimeter to be able to get to the rim better. So personally, this is not an offense that I like because we want to teach a complete total game to every player. Every player needs to be able to play every position from guard to center, and if we're just focusing on center skills for centers, it's not the greatest. So here is an offense that I run that I'm very successful with when going against a zone. Now, I'm going to start in the 5-out offense against a 2-3 zone, and I actually really prefer the 5-out offense against a zone defense. And while this is not a traditional take on a zone offense, I actually really like it. So nobody wants to attack the gaps, so these two top players are going to be closing the top because nobody wants to have a drive down middle. So player 1, if the pass is open, he can pass left or right. If it's not and they're playing up, then he's going to have to drive instead. So player 1 will either pass or drive. Let's say he drives and attacks this gap. Well, when he attacks the gap, watch what happens. The defense collapses, which means that he needs to kick the ball out. Well, he could kick the ball out to player 4 in this case, or to player 2. Now, before you say, well, I don't have 3-point shooters on my team, it doesn't matter. So player 1 kicks the ball out to player 2. This recovers the zone or the zone is trying to recover. Player 4 is going to stunt until player 2 gets there, but drive, kick, swing. We drove, we kicked, now we swing. Now we drive again and attack this new gap. When player 4 attacks this gap, that's going to collapse player 5. That's going to be collapsing player 3. And guess what? Well, we would have had player 1 recover out. Now this is also collapsing player 4. So player 2 can drop. Player 4 can land on 2 feet, or he can do a hammer pass out to player 5. But also, look at this amazing big gap that's open right here. If player 3 cuts off ball, this can be a layup. If that's not there, we can kick it out to player 2. We drove, we kicked, player 1, he fills, we swing, player 2 is covering, player 1 now attacks the gap, player 3 is back up top, they're going to be filling out, player 1 attacks the gap yet again, we kick that ball out, but this time I would prefer it to go to the opposite wing if possible, but either way, let's say we kick that out to there, that's going to bring and lift player 3 up until player 1 recovers. Let's just say they filled out like this, this is going to draw the defense over like this, we swing, we attack this new gap. We're now collapsing the defense. Now, player 2 can cut. This could be a layup. This could be a kick. There's a lot of different options because by getting that ball into the paint, we are collapsing the defense and making them spread out when we kick it. Collapsing the defense and then spreading it back out. And by making that defense move as much as we are with that drive, kick, swing on the 5-out, you are collapsing that defense, you are opening up gaps in their zone, and it's going to allow you to have some easy layups. It's great for teams that have a lot of slashers or shooters, and you can get a lot of threes off of this as well. It's a very simple offense that I think is pretty well unstoppable, so definitely something to try. This can also work really well against a 1-3-1. So you drive, you collapse, that's going to shift the defense, you kick it out, that's going to bring this guy up. You then swing it. That's going to bring player 4 out. Maybe they're trying to trap, whatever it may be. That's going to drop player 3 potentially. Player 1 attacks the baseline. You have potentially a wing or a baseline cutter. You can choose what your principles are. I would prefer, if it's against a 1-3-1, a baseline cutter. And if that's the case, then it's going to be an open layup. Very simple, very easy. You're going to be able to score a ton off of this. However, the one zone that this last play will not work very well against at all is the unbeatable zone defense that I have down in the description below. That's a killer defense that's going to trap the corners and double the low post and not leave anybody open. I hope that you've enjoyed today's video. Make sure to go check out the 5-out book as well if you want the complete guide to the 5-out offense. And I'll see you guys again in my next video. Hit that like button and subscribe. If you want a deadly zone defense where these strategies will have a hard time playing against, guess what? The Unbeatable Basketball Zone Defense book is definitely a play that's going to be able to help you. It doubles the low post and traps the corners. So definitely go check it out in the description below.